Welcome everybody, Bo here, Football Talk, and we are going to get rolling with this week's Hawk Talk on a Sunday morning ahead of the games today. So we didn't have a game last week, bye week, and there wasn't a lot of things that you can really take from that Tampa Bay game. We really played bad for 3 quarters. Really no push from offense or defensive line. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that, as I'm starting to think that that was more of an aberration, just some jet lag, and a lot of those guys never been out of the country before. So I think it took them a while to get going, and going against a seasoned veteran team of the Tampa Bay Bucks, they were able to handle that moment a little bit better. So I'm not going to put a lot of stock in the way that game went and focus more on the way that it's progressed up to this point. So we're going to do a little bit of the pre-game analysis, but first we're going to go ahead and get to everybody's questions. We got a lot of submissions this week, which is awesome. So we're just going to go ahead and get rolling. Why isn't Fant the featured tight end, since he's supposed to be a top echelon tight end? And Fant he's a solid player for sure. I am a little bit surprised that he isn't featured a little bit more. That being said, we have a really good tight end room overall, and so I don't know that he is the best blocker out of everybody in that room, and I think that's why they kind of filter everybody through. All of them can catch really well, so it's not like him not being on the field is a detriment to the offense. So that's why I feel like he hasn't been featured more. And it's just because there's a lot of balance in that room. So I don't really fault him for that. Which rookie has impressed the most compared to the position? It's got to be the two tackles. They have given Geno a lot more time than he would have had, prior to the draft, right? So as impressive as Walker and Woolen have been, Walker, his numbers happen because of the guys up front. And so having two solid rookie offensive tackles, I mean, man, that has to be the position that is really shining through, because that allows the offense to do what the offense does. So I'm going to go with the tandem of rookie tackles. With Russ's cap hit done, who should the Hawks free agent targets be? Kareem Hunt, possibly. It's the Seahawks, right? So they're not going to do anything in free agency, really. And they don't really need to. They have a ton of draft capital. The guys that they have in the building are doing really well. So I don't think that they're really going to do much in the free agency market. The only thing that is interesting will be, on the quarterback side, do they try and shop Drew Lock and maybe still draft a quarterback? Or, that will be interesting come free agency time. So that'll be good to watch. But I mean, historically, they don't do anything in free agency, really. With Melvin Gordon being released, should they go after Melvin Gordon? No, I don't think so. He, over the last 2 seasons, has had an insane amount of fumbles. And so I don't know that you want to bring that into a kind of younger locker room, just because that can be discouraging, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and defense too. I mean, if they're out there and your offense starts to do something, you got turnovers. Turnovers are always a bummer. So I don't think that they're going to go after Melvin Gordon. Don't get me wrong. If he could figure out how to hang on to the ball, he's a fantastic back. And so he would be a great supplement for Walker. But beyond that, yeah, I don't foresee that being something the Hawks go after. All right. I've talked about the run D. What is the fix here? So the fix doesn't happen this season, really. So I figure that it's going to be handled in the draft. There's like 4 solid edge rushers in the draft, and that are all potential first round picks. And then there's also 2 or 3 interior linemen that also would be in the first round, maybe early second round. So there's some things that they can do to shore it up. The way that it's playing out now, I think they're pretty much just going to adjust scheme a little bit to help the guys that they have on the defensive side. And they have gotten better as the year has gone on, but I would imagine that gets addressed this offseason. We pretty much are going to be rolling the rest of the way with what is here. All right. If the Seahawks didn't do the Wilson trade, would the Broncos be better? Would the Seahawks be better, worse, the same? So the Hawks would probably be in a similar spot. The Broncos would probably be better. There's a continuity issue there for sure. The Seahawks would probably be about the same because Wilson still wouldn't have a line, but he would have a scheme that he is used to. He would, an offense that he knows, coaching that allows him to play within his skill set, receivers that he has rapport with. So I think that they would probably be in a similar boat that they are now, wins and losses wise. The team would look different, but they'd probably be about in the same place. You probably still ended up with Walker in the draft, but you wouldn't have had you wouldn't have had either tackle. You wouldn't have had, Fant. There's a ton of things that wouldn't have happened if that trade didn't go through. So although the wins and losses are probably the same, I feel better about the Seahawks getting a playoff win with their current makeup than had Wilson still been in the building. This is one I've been asked a couple of times. Do I ever meet up with fans, followers, whatever? Of course. Yeah. If you're in my town, absolutely. Let's go catch a game. That's an open invite all the time. It's always fun. I had a guy that jumped on a bus for an hour and a half to come down and watch a couple of games with me last year. So it absolutely open. If you happen to end up in Puerto Vallarta, absolutely. Let's go watch a game. All right. Let's see. After the season, what does the receiving core look like if Metcalf signs somewhere else? Well, so that could be interesting, I guess. The thing about Metcalf is he is an extreme talent, but he has a tendency to, he's going to get you a 15-yarder sometime during the game, and he does have some drops in some key spots. He's going to make some amazing catches, but he's not the number one target, despite being an elite, just crazy athlete. So, man, tough to say. Like, I would think that if they get to the point where they know he's going to go, then that might also be something that they're looking for in the draft, as far as, just a rookie receiver to pick up. Let's see. All right, so here's a two-part question asked by two different people, but kind of about the same thing. Do we aim at winning the division, or accept that the Niners might win and focus on a wild card? So, I mean, you're always trying to win the division, right? And because we have the same record, if it continues that same way, that head-to-head matchup on December 15th all of a sudden looms large, because that would give us a game up, and we'd be tied as far as, we would split. And so then it would come down to divisional wins if we did drop a game later. But that Thursday night game is going to be a huge game for the Hawks and the Niners. And then the second part to that is, how do we beat the Niners? Well, I mean, they have an insane amount of talent on that team, and they are getting healthy at the right time. But, the key to beating them is, unfortunately, we got to be able to shut down McCaffrey, and our run defense is sketchy. It's gotten better through the season, but it's not awesome. And so if we can get him shut down and get some pressure on Garoppolo, he will make those mistakes. And so it's going to be a battle the whole time. So if we can get Garoppolo to create a couple of turnovers, our defense is really opportunistic, and are really big on getting in and causing fumbles. So if they can stay true to that, then I think they can absolutely snag a win there. Does it really matter? I mean, as long as we can get into the playoffs, at the end of the day, you got to try and put 4 wins together, right? So if we can get into the playoffs, then that's perfect, because there's only one bye at this point anyway. And, based on what we've seen so far, no one from our division is going to get that bye week. So you're going to be playing in the wild card round anyway. So if they end up beating us the second time during the season, we got to face them again. It is really hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. So I feel pretty good about it. And I mean, again, it's going to come down to, if we can keep McCaffrey under control, our secondary will be able to at least mitigate how many explosive plays that can happen, especially knowing that Garoppolo isn't that guy, right? Like, he's not a Josh Allen Mahomes who's going to just torch you with little windows. Garoppolo has to have, although an accurate passer, he does have to have quite a few things going correctly. He's that kind of B+ quarterback. He's going to make that mistake. So as long as he's not put in that position, he will absolutely come in and beat you. And in this scenario, as long as we can kind of press the issue and force him into those situations, then, absolutely the Hawks win that game. Let's see. With the positive play from the rookies in the secondary, are the Hawks willing to move Adams for an edge rusher? So Adams, his contract just got rolling, and they don't have a feasible out until the 2024 offseason anyway. So Adams isn't going anywhere. And with the picks that they currently have, they're going to be able to address the edge rusher situation anyway. So I don't think that's going to be too big of a problem. But as it sits right now, Adams is a big enough cap hit, and his contract, doesn't really have any restructure or buyout option until, the 2024 season anyway. So he's on the roster next year, no matter what. And I mean, if he can be a contributor, then awesome, right? I mean, they gave up a ton to get him. I don't know that they're going to throw the bag, just throw in the towel on it and, take the cap hit. I don't see them doing that. He's a good enough athlete. The last thing you want to do is give up all that stuff. He goes to another team and comes in and has the game of his life against you. So at this point, I think he stays on the roster, certainly through next season. Does Geno stay or go potential contract? So this is kind of an evolving thing, right? So it's, like I've said before, it's going to depend on what it is he thinks he wants out of his contract. So if he's looking for north of 30 mil per year, or like a longer contract, they are absolutely going to let him walk and test out free agency, because they have multiple first round picks, stuff like that. So if Geno is looking for either a guaranteed 27 for 3 years, they re-sign him. If he's looking for like an incentive based, upwards of 33, again for 3 years, I think that again they still sign him. If he's looking anything north of that or longer term than that, they let him go and test out free agency market, and then focus on a first round quarterback probably this year, and let Drew Lock and whoever wherever our pick ends up, who is available, probably let them battle it out for, who the starting quarterback would be. All right. So this one I said I would come back to. What is the comp for Walker as a running back? And so I was watching the way that he runs, and, the fact that he's not afraid to initiate contact. So my comp for him, if he could stay on the trajectory that he's on, would be kind of a Mark Ingram type thing. I think he's a little bit faster than Ingram runs, but he has a similar run style. And so it's not exactly a bad place to be if your comp is Mark Ingram. They're built very similarly. They're about the same height and weight. and they run with a very similar veracity where they're just, they'll come and hit you, but they'll make you miss as well. Like he does have shiftiness, that one step plant, doesn't really lose a lot of speed, making that cut. So that's kind of what I see currently. That would be my comp. So yeah, so Mark Ingram, that would probably be it. He does have a little bit of Tony Pollard elusiveness to him, so there is a little bit of that. But Mark Ingram is probably my closest comp there. Do I think they should try to bring in Adrian Peterson as a running back coach? Absolutely. Like that, if you could get anything from the way that dude ran the ball, awesome. I mean, just a little bit of time that he was in the building helped Penny so much. I mean, from when AP came in and you watched Penny running the ball versus after a few weeks he was in there were some noticeable differences that made him pop a little more. And so if you can get that, especially on a rookie like Walker, absolutely go get that guy. I can't imagine that AP wouldn't want a coaching position. Like he loves the game so much, you got to think he would still want to be around. He liked being in Seattle. And so, yeah, no, if you can get AP to come in, even as a consultant, absolutely. Since I don't think Rodgers is a good fit for Seattle, where does he go? I mean, I don't know if he even stays in the league. Like he keeps talking about retirement and whatever. I don't know of another team that wants his contract. I mean, he's making 50 mil a year, so that's a tough cap hit to want to take on. That being said, if there was a team that was ready to win now, feels like a quarterback away, it's got to be the Titans, right? I mean, Tannehill he's a solid game manager, but that offense runs the way Henry runs. And so if Henry has a bad day or the offensive line isn't quite getting the holes for him, then the Titans lose, because for the most part, Tannehill is not going to go get you that win. So if they had a quarterback that, 4 or 5 games a year, they're like, hey, go win this game. Rodgers is that guy. Like he can absolutely still do that. Now, do I think they do that? Absolutely not. Like that is such a monstrous hit to your cap. And, again, you still have the just kind of weird, Rodgers mentality where he just, from the outside, obviously never played with the guy, right? But from the outside, he seems like he's always kind of doing his own thing. And so it's not generally awesome for team chemistry. But again, I don't know the guy personally, so maybe it's different behind the doors. But from the outside, it just seems like not really a good fit anywhere. I would imagine when his time in Green Bay is done, he pretty much is walking away from the league. So yeah, I don't think anybody gets him, but a place that could use his talent obviously would be the Titans. All right. So then let's just do a little bit of, Raiders prep here. So, man, the Raiders have really just been terrible, which doesn't make a lot of sense on paper. They're a really solid team. I had them as a, 6th or 7th seed type team. And so obviously that is not going to be a thing. But, there's been some funny talk about Carr. Just, everybody says Carr's bad, whatever. And he's a mid-level guy. Like he's the Dak, he's the Jimmy G. He's that, like he can do a couple of things sometimes, and he's probably going to lose you some games too. Like he's not the Mahomes, Allen, type guy. He's just not. There's only a couple of those in the league, and he's not one of them. But he does consistently throw for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns just about every single game, and that if you couple that with a good running game, like that'll win you a lot of games, potentially even a championship. So like Carr isn't really the problem. Now there is a problem there. Like you saw him, breaking down on camera, not against this last game, but the game before. And so if the problem is in the locker room, it's not like he called out coaches and stuff. He was calling out just players not coming with everything. And if that's the case, then, I mean, they'll be lucky to win another game this season. I mean, they were able to beat the Broncos in overtime, but that's another team that's just absolutely fallen flat this whole season. So that's not really a vote of confidence of any kind. Like they beat another bad team. So, who cares? So I don't know that, I don't know that I'd read too much into it. But then again, his connection with Adams has gotten better over the last 3 games. He's averaging 137 and, almost 2 touchdowns a game over the last 3 weeks. So, I mean, that connection has really started to come along. The Raiders defense is surprisingly way worse than I thought they were going to be coming into the year. So, and then they have a running back that is, he's against the Broncos, which is a top 5 defense, had 100 yards rushing. So like they have the elements to win. I just don't think they do. Obviously we need way better line play out of the offense and defensive line that we had against Tampa Bay a couple of weeks ago. But I think you're going to have that. We didn't have a long flight. It went right into their bye. So at this point, they've been able to, have almost 2 weeks off. And I feel like they're going to be able to come out, be energized. They had 2 weeks to prep for this game. Whether or not things have been fixed on either side of the ball, I don't know that we're really going to know, just because, again, the Raiders aren't a great team. The line on it's funny, though. Like they're only giving the Hawks, they're minus 3.5. So there's still not a lot of confidence there. In that scenario, I would probably take the Hawks and the points. The Hawks have been able to put up a lot of points this season. So the fact that they think that the Raiders are going to be able to hang with them is surprising, especially as bad as that Raiders defense has played. But, it's going to be a fun watch. I am definitely going with a Hawks win here, and I would take the points. But so let me know what you think. Like, subscribe. And other than that, enjoy the game. Go Hawks.